Hi, I'm Josh. I was born in poverty-laden Flint, Michigan to a blue-collar working family. I went from pulling weeds, washing dishes, and delivering pizzas to building a small business doing over $150,000 a month. I sold it and moved to Costa Rica with my wife and 4 kids. And on this podcast, we explore the secrets and the strategies that I used to win. Building your business is one of the hardest things you will ever do. So let me finally help you automate, grow, and someday sell your company. Hey everybody, thank you for hanging out with me today. This is Josh coming to you from Las Vegas. I'm doing a little traveling, having tons of fun, and the most fun part of my day today is the conversation I'm about to have with AC Lockyer. Now, a lot of you guys may know AC. He's kind of an urban legend. He's accomplished a lot in business, and he's done some things that some of you won't even believe. I'm going to let him unpack his history in a second here, but I just want to say welcome, AC. Thank you for taking time to hang out with me.
Thanks, Josh. It's a blast.
Absolutely. And talking about business and being passionate, and even in the pre-interview when we were just talking, I had goosebumps a couple times. I feel like we're very like-minded. You're far more ahead in the game of business than I am. But, when I grow up, I want to be the type of guy that you seem to be. And, with your history, you've accomplished some mega things. You had businesses in Florida that you started out of college, and I'll let you explain that grew to almost the $5 million mark. You guys were crushing it. And then you said there was a one branch that you opened because you had multiple locations that did over $150,000 the first month you opened it. I know that stuff doesn't happen by accident. I know you're doing other things now, but can we go back in time and tell us a little bit about your story and how this started and kind of what happened in Florida with the pressure cleaning and the soft washing business?
Yeah, it's a great story, especially when I see where other people are starting. Like I was telling you in the pre-interview, I'm a fan of the Underdog. I really like to help people. And the person who helped me was my dad. It's funny because, we were talking earlier, I'm actually sitting in my son's dorm room. You're in a hotel room in Las Vegas. I'm in a dorm room in Abilene, Texas. Now, most people have not heard of Abilene, Texas, but it's Abilene Christian University, where both of my kids have gone to college, and my wife and I went to college. That's where we met. And I got kicked out of Abilene Christian University 26 years ago. And I'd love to say it's because they caught me playing at some nightclub, and it was a footloose kind of moment, and the church kicked me out and stuff. But it's not quite as exciting. I just really suck at math. And after failing fundamentals for algebra 3 times, I had to take remedial math classes to even be able to get college credit. After failing fundamentals for algebra 3 times, my advisor called me in and said, son, you need to stop spending your daddy's money and go out and get a job like all the working folks out there.
Ooh, what was that like? In that moment, you're a young man. What did that do to your ego and your confidence? Were you worried about it? Were you not? What were you thinking when that happened?
Well, what I was thinking was I was actually here for a ministry degree, and wanted to be a pastor, wanted to be a preacher. And I'm thinking to myself, as a lot of people do with math, what in the heck does math have to do with ministry? Just get me through this college program so I can go out and get a job. And for somebody to look at me and say, nah, you're not quite college material, AC. We're going to take a pass on you. Made me feel like they were saying I'm going to take a pass on AC Lockyer, and that hurts you to your core. But it was a stone in my path that deflected me onto another course, which ended up being a better course.
Yeah, I hear you there. It's crazy. And sometimes people like us, because I went to college briefly. I always joke that I stopped by, right?
Yeah.
And it's like I'm a square peg trying to fit in a round hole. And I love learning. I love consuming content and educating. But especially with the internet now, the young businesses have the most incredible advantages because of the access to education. Universities do not have education, cornered. They're not the gatekeepers of that anymore. It's just out there, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah. College universities were just a place to house all of the thinkers and the thought provokers and the thought leaders of the time, and that's changing rapidly. I mean, they would create a university, give them all a job, have them teach courses and lecture and all, and it was a way to take all the intellectuals and make sure they had a paycheck so that they didn't end up being poor and begging on the streets because they were intellectuals. And they could shape young minds and shape souls and shape people and send them out to do great things. And now the internet is starting to become the clearinghouse, or the house to house the thought leaders and the intellectuals and the people that are driving industry and entrepreneurship and just product innovation today.
It's amazing. So you get kind of the boot out of there. You hit the stone. You go on the different path. You get in your truck. You drive back to Florida, and you start a business, pressure cleaning. And you obviously know nothing. What was that like in the beginning, and how in the heck did you get to almost $500,000 a month in revenue? It's crazy. You're having $300,000-$400,000 months. What the heck happened in between there?
Well, my father was an entrepreneur. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. My grandfather actually owned several businesses. He owned Elite Appliances, which later got bought out by Toastmaster. He was part of the invention of the pop-up toaster, the electric blender, and the fountain soda machine, and did a lot of entrepreneurial inventor kind of stuff. He had a driftwood furniture business. My dad actually had to leave high school his sophomore year as a straight A student to take over one of the family businesses because my grandfather had gotten too sick to work and was in the hospital most of the year. And so as a 15-year-old kid, he was running around on a motor scooter repairing appliances, built that up. We always lived very, very well. I really wanted to be a lead singer in a heavy metal rock and roll band, Josh. That's all I wanted to do.
Well, don't we all? I mean, that's the dream, right?
I mean, that was the dream, and, I grew my hair out and did all that kind of stuff and played in bands. But this entrepreneurial gene, this those things in your life that you can't fight anymore. You just know that you're built to do something. Yep. Your talents and everything lean. Your inklings. All of your leanings go a certain way. And so when I got out of college, I proposed to my girlfriend Karen at the time, who's now my wife, and she became my fiance. I was driving back to Florida. This was before cell phones, so I'm stopping at the rest stops, calling home collect to let my parents know that I'm still alive. And I said, Dad, you've helped other people start businesses. I want to start a little business so I can support Karen and we can get married. What do you think would be a good idea for a business? And he said, well, the family painter, during the process of painting the house, pressure washed the outside of the house. He pressure washed the roof, and man, the roof came out great looking, made the roof look like brand new. He says, it seems to me like that would be a great business. So the rest of my 24-hour drive coming back home, I was probably at the halfway point when I got that unveiled on me. So the next 12 hours, I thought about roof cleaning. I'm looking at roofs, and I'm seeing these streaks on the roofs and all. And I'm like, well, this might be a nice little business. Came back to Florida, and my catalyst or my desire, the thing that drove me in this, was I was getting married. I needed to support my wife. And which was the funny thing is, as soon as we got married, man, we were fertile myrtle. She was pregnant 3 months after we got married. We got a baby on the way. And, you got to put your nose to the grindstone to make something happen.
Yes,
yes. And, started this business literally, as I told you earlier, with a $1,500 Mitsubishi pickup truck. It was called a D50. It was actually a Dodge truck made by Mitsubishi, a D50 long bed, and a $400 pressure washer that we bought at Sam's Wholesale. And I went out and started cleaning roofs. And
it's a great story, and people already know this. I don't want to be redundant, but I started with a Chevy Cavalier with a ladder on my roof. But by the way, for those of you wondering, there's no ladder racks on a Chevy Cavalier. Like, I just put it, on the roof, which is so ridiculous. I would go hide my car when I do estimates, and then I'd walk 2 or 3 blocks, do the estimate, and then when I'd show up for the appointment, people were mortified, But my mom always said, don't despise small beginnings. And I want to transition a little bit, because you'd mentioned that you're a huge fan of the Underdog, right? And I was the Underdog. I was actually the first entrepreneur in my family. You might you had some advantages there with some guidance and wisdom and things. But you were an underdog in your $1,500 truck, right? And then on the internet, there's underdogs everywhere. They're trying to make a living. They're trying to do it. But these so-called professional companies, sometimes they're so mean to the underdog. They just cut them down, and you're doing it wrong, and why do you have the crappy equipment and whatever? And you seem to have a heart for people like that. Why is that? What are your thoughts?
Well, a lot of people have asked us why at Soft Wash Systems, which is my latest business, why we didn't go the route of franchising. And it's because if we went the route of franchising, people would have to come up with an initiation fee of $20,000, $30,000 to purchase their territory, have to make an investment of $20,000 or $30,000 in equipment, buy a $20,000 or $30,000 truck, spend $20,000 or $30,000 on collateral materials and websites and licensing and insurance and all that stuff. And before they know it, they spend $100,000 just to start a business. And that's not where my heart was. Where my heart was is I heard a quote a few weeks back ago, and it may have been. I don't know, I may be ripping off some of your stuff. It may have been at a big convention, or somebody else mentioned that Henry Ford actually killed 3 car companies before he got it right. And that really struck a chord with me is how many overnight successes and how many multimillionaires or billionaires that are out there that had to fail before they could succeed. And when I say that I really cheer for the underdog, I've been the underdog several times in my life, and I've done incredible stuff like you mentioned, like winning the Redfish Tour National Championship my rookie season. Those types of things, you're like, wow, how do you do that? Well, there's always a yin and a yang to it. My story ended 6 years ago with an extremely horrid family business breakup, and literally having to walk away from my last business before this one with my last $250 in my pocket. And, really looking at if I did anything in the future that helped other people get into business, that it had to be a situation where they could literally do it themselves with their last $250 in their pocket.
Wow, that is powerful. I mean, if you struggle and grind and fail and have the pain and suffering, I call it walking through the fire. If you do that for a couple decades, eventually you become an overnight success, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you got these guys you're helping and serving now. And obviously you're a technical expert. I mean, that's how I perceive you. Okay, so on the technical side of the pH of the chemical with the application of the PSI, of all that stuff, you get all that stuff. But let's talk a little bit about like details and the other things that are important in a business, because I see a lot of guys, maybe you see this too, that focus, in my opinion, way too much on what I call technical perfection. I wrote a blog post called The Technical Perfection Deception. But right. They don't worry about the back end of their business, the systems, the customer experience, the touch points, the follow-ups, all that other stuff, which to me is everything. Do you see that to be true? What do you have to say in regards to that?
Well, I think one of the things that's made me very successful is, of course, my dad was very obsessive compulsive. So growing up, it was, son, go out and wash the trucks. Okay, went out and washed the trucks. He'd come out to inspect them and say, oh, you're not done. And he'd take his hand, he'd wipe up underneath the wheel well and pull out his fingers and say, they're still dirty. So I'd clean all the wheel wells underneath the trucks, and I'd call him out for inspection. He'd pop the hood on the truck, and he'd go behind a hose on the engine, and he'd say, you're still not done. And I was taught from a very, very early age to do everything 3, 4, 5-fold better than what was expected. So I think one of the biggest key ingredients to doing a business is don't do it good enough. Don't ever let the words good enough flow through your mouth. And then number 2, because I'm a fisherman and I have a huge amount of experience with fishing and fishing professionally, is systems are huge. We call it establishing a pattern. When you catch a fish, ask why you caught the fish, what line it was on, what lure it was on, what color was the lure, how long was the rod, was it in 3 foot of water, was it in 6 foot of water, was it on a rocky bank, was it on a grassy point? Because once you identify why you had that success and you make a few more casts, you're going to catch another fish. And if you catch another fish in the same pattern that you caught the last fish and you've established that pattern, now you can systemize it, and you can go out on tournament day and replicate that system or that pattern over and over and over again to gain success catching that certain size fish to win the tournament.
Yes.
So systems in your business, I always say when I'm doing my seminars, systemize the good stuff, not the bad stuff. Don't replicate the bad stuff. Replicate the good stuff. That's a huge thing. And then because, I'm actually diagnosed OCD and ADHD. So, you know what that makes, Josh?
I don't know. It sounds like quite the cocktail mixture.
That makes an obsessive that can't pay attention to their projects.
Those are like completely mutually exclusive. Your brain must be crazy in there.
So, but what that was is most people would say, well, woe is me. I'm screwed up. My wiring's all wrong. I've got all the excuses in the world that I need to not be successful. But what it did is it made me a systems monster because I cannot function without systems. Everything's got to have a basket. Everything has to have a place. Everything has to have an order. Everything has to have a process. Everything, for me not to miss things and drop the ball and to get distracted and all, I've got to have literally a path for every process that goes through my company. And because of that, it's made me and Softwash Systems incredible content generators and system generators and process generators, and being able to give people exacting maps that they can follow to get their business to a successful point to support them.
Man, there's so many things I want to say. I'm trying to organize my thoughts, but entrepreneurs sometimes they think they're the smartest person in the room, right? There's a little bit of false pride, especially with new entrepreneurs sometimes. And, usually the world kind of smacks that out of you through pain and suffering. But they think they can remember everything in their head. They think that they cannot drop the balls, even though there's 27 balls. Like, I got this. I'm me. I'm awesome. I'm going to, but that's such a huge mistake. And you being OCD and ADHD at the same time, it kind of forced you to systemize. But it doesn't matter if you're like AC or not. You need these things. And one of the things I teach, I'm really curious to get your feedback on this, is that everyone listening to this right now already has a fully systemized business. So the question isn't, should I do systems? The question rather needs to be this. Are the current systems, the current operating system for my company, my brain, the way I engage my employees, my staff, my sales, my spouse, my kids, my dog, are those systems currently serving you well? Because in my experience, people are their systems aren't calibrated correctly. For example, they don't follow up after they do a job. Well, that's a zero-touch follow-up system, right? I make jokes about that, but that's the way I see it. And, I was taught that by a guy with a $17 million carpet cleaning business, and it blew my mind. Like, it was massive. The way you talk to yourself, the war in your head. How do you view your market? Do you live in fear? All those things, really, aren't they just systems already? Well,
they are. And what you've mentioned there, and it goes back to one of your earlier points, is the difference between being reactive and proactive. If you're going to, don't get caught up in analysis paralysis is also what they call, what you were talking about earlier, where I've got to analyze everything. I got to get it perfect before I commit it to paper. Sometimes you've got to write your system no matter how poor your system is. You got to go on the top of the piece of paper and write follow-up system. Okay, and if you literally don't have anything, you've got to write number one, put a dot next to it, and pause to decide what that first thing's going to be. And understand, it's a rough draft. It's a work in progress. And don't let the busyness of life keep you from writing these things down. We just had our production manager left to go back into doing house parenting. And so he's not going to be able to serve in our company anymore as a production manager. He's going to be handling our technical support calls and stuff like that and carrying that phone. But before he left, I said, listen, I'm going to go out in the warehouse myself, and I'm going to build the next 2 weeks worth of equipment. I want you to just sit down, please, and just spend the next 2 weeks with Kaylin, one of our girls in the office who's actually an English major, and I want you to write out step by step the process of building every single piece of equipment we build. Take all the pictures, because we've got a big bank of pictures. Everything we do in our business, we take 3 or 4 pictures from 3 or 4 different angles. And we have just a huge file of nothing but pictures on our server. And I said, match the pictures up to it and build a production manual. Because without that production manual, I didn't have anything, because AC's traveling the country and he's busy and he's gone 3 weeks a month. I didn't have anything to pass on to the next guy I was going to hire as production manager. It was going to derail me and make me have to stay in Orlando and train the new production manager until they understood how to build all of our equipment. So you have to stop. And it wasn't perfect the first time he did it. Now I'm going back over it with the production manager that we've hired. And as we're going through and we're building each piece of equipment according to the production book that David put together with Kaylin before he left to go do his ministry stuff again, we're going through it and we're debunking it now. And we've got a red pen out. We're putting notes on it. We're putting places where we'd rather have a better picture. And we're working on it. But I can tell you right now, the first draft we had, I guarantee you, was the best production manual anybody else had in the business for building their equipment. Because most people don't even have one.
Well, because you did something. I mean, most people don't do anything because of analysis paralysis, or they don't know where to start. But listen, one of my favorite quotes is progress, not perfection. Right? Just start, guys. And I just want to encourage everybody listening to this. Start. I call it an MVS. I have some checklists and things that are in my boot camp. It's called a minimum viable system. And it's okay if, some systems are one sentence long. They're one sentence. That's it. The way you answer the phone, maybe the script you say, or the way you introduce yourself, or whatever. I mean, we had a system for who ordered toilet paper for our office because it got to a point where we have 20 plus grown men coming in and out and they're sweaty and it's a long day and they need to go to the bathroom and there's no toilet paper and it was like a disaster. And it's like, well, so we wrote like a paragraph system, delegated it to the right person, coached him on it, and then that was it. That problem didn't happen again. And it's about being intentional. I love the word intentional because everybody works super hard, but there's a difference between being productive and just sheer effort. And when you work hard and you focus on the right things, like documenting what you're doing today and then incrementally improving it, that's when you get massive explosive growth, is when you're intentional in the right areas, not just raw effort. Do you agree with that?
I do agree. And there's something that I teach a lot in our in-network companies, because we've gotten so large now at the in-network companies, I've had to close off my business consulting company to any other companies in our industry. I only consult our in-network companies. But one of the things I teach people is, and Josh, you and I, we both shared, we're both Christians. Okay, we're both men of faith. We both do faith-based businesses. And when you look at the Bible is a book of systems. It's a book, this is a book of history. Okay, but it's also a book of systems. This is how you get closer to God. This is how you save your eternal soul. And this is what you need to do to have a relationship with God. Okay, and it goes all the way back to the Ten Commandments. Nobody knew what bad was. Fine, go out and covet your neighbor's wife. Nobody knew it was wrong until they put the Ten Commandments together and they said, hey, guys, stop going out and committing adultery or coveting your neighbor's things and doing all this stuff, until somebody wrote it down and said, this is not right behavior. Same thing in your company. Until you put together systems or you put together that employee manual, or you have nothing to judge your employees by or hold them accountable. Because if somehow after you spent that time putting together the toilet paper system, if you had walked into that bathroom and there was not a roll of toilet paper available for you, okay, then you would have had to have held somebody, and this is a big word for me in my organization, you would have had to hold somebody accountable for that system or process not being completed. Until you create that system and process, you have nothing to judge the performance of your employees against.
Right. And there's no benchmarks. There's no baseline.
Yeah. And then the inmates run the asylum.
You know what the hardest part about what you said is, AC, I think, is holding ourselves accountable. Because every huge enterprise starts with one guy and an idea, right? I mean, Sam Walton, whatever the story is, Henry Ford, these were little babies and they grew to be toddlers and little kids, and at some point they had passion and inspiration and they started something. But in the beginning, it's very, very, actually, a lot of the times as an entrepreneur, it's very lonely. And it can be very alienating if you're not networking or you don't have mentors and stuff. So do you have any tips for us on how to hold yourself accountable? Is it just raw willpower? I mean, what do you do? Are you part of a mastermind group? Do you have accountability partners? How does the little guy with 1 or 2 employees buckle down and make this stuff happen?
Well, I think you need to have at least one accountability partner in your life. And this is a Christian principle. That person that you're honest with, that holds you accountable, that can look at you and say, hey, cut the bull crap, what's really going on in your life? The person that when you share a goal or a dream or something with them, or a behavioral change you want to make, that's that person that will call you on the phone and hold your feet to the fire on the plans that you make and the inadequacies in your life. So number one, get an accountability partner. Okay. Number two, I'm a part of a group called Dream Builders. And I mean, literally, we've got in my Dream Builders group, I've got 2 billionaires, okay, in that group. But you know, they're people that have dreams, and we all help each other with their dreams and everything. And it's a group of Christian businessmen that focus on helping other people's dreams happen in this group of businessmen. And find a group that can help you dream. That's not going to look at you, because most people as an entrepreneur, when you share your crazy idea with them. I remember when we were talking to a guy that was a vice president of First Union Bank in Orlando, Florida, having lunch with him after church, and we shared our idea about roof and exterior soft washing with him. And he thought we were fools. Why would anybody want to clean a roof? That's a stupid idea. If I was a banker, I'd never loan you money for that, everything else. Okay. And now look at where soft washing is now, 25 years later. I mean, soft washing is the biggest thing happening in the exterior cleaning industry, bar none. Okay. And everybody thought, not everybody, but the majority of people, when I mentioned it to them 25 years ago, thought it was dumb. Never looked up on the roofs, never even, why soft wash your house? I can pressure wash it. I mean, people were putting shoes on their horses and they didn't see a reason to change. Right. And, so find a group of people it's okay and it's safe to dream with. They're going to look at you and go, I think that's the greatest idea ever, even when it's stupid ideas. Because even your stupid ideas need affirmation sometimes, because sometimes those are the ideas that rock.
Well, even stupid ideas can be wildly profitable. I mean, look at the Pet Rock, right? The Pet Rock, seriously? And I wasn't even alive during the Pet Rock, but that's like the most legendary, silly idea I've heard of that was a wild success. I made some notes when you were talking. I'm getting fired up here. Number one is you have to cut out the negative, life force sucking people out of your life like the cancer that they are. It doesn't mean you're mean to them. It doesn't mean that you're rude to them. You think you're better than them. No, you have to position yourself to be around people who can enhance you. I mean, if you're the smartest person in the room, get in a new room. You have to stretch yourself. And the other thing I wrote down was you have to protect your dream. And you alluded to that too. You have to be careful with who you share these things with, because business is a mental war. It is a war inside our brains. And when we have negativity or we share our dream too loosely with people who shoot it down, who really have nothing positive to add, why do we give authority to these people to speak into our life? And I also, have you ever heard the phrase big, hairy, audacious dream? But, it's okay to have a big, hairy, audacious, ginormous, scares yourself it's so big of a dream. It's okay. But make sure you tuck it in your pocket and unleash it around the people that can add value to that and add value to you, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things that I had to do this year back in January, beginning of February, is I had to realize that Facebook had a little button on it called the block button. And I went through and systematically over about a 3-month period of time, I started blocking people that I deemed, not necessarily bad people, but they were just people that were not positive influences on my life or my dreams or the path we were taking for the 120 companies we have around the country and trying to nurture them and all. And there's some organizations that we've had to pull ourselves out of because they were not positive for what we were trying to accomplish. And it's funny, after I blocked about 14 people from my Facebook, all of a sudden my Facebook feed cleaned itself up and it was all positive again. That's what you have to do is you've got to, the Bible says, throw off all things that so easily hinder you. Okay? You've got to decide, or it says, it's better to go into heaven, pluck your eye out if it causes you to sin. It's better to go into heaven with one eye plucked out than it is to go to hell and have your entire body consumed by the flame. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There are decisions we have to make as entrepreneurs that if we're going to climb those mountains, have those victories, win those battles, win those fights, and get that product out there, bring it to market, get people to appreciate our product and monetize our dreams. If we're going to do that, man, we can't have those negative people around us. You have got to clear house when it comes to that.
Well, what I'm hearing you say is we have to say no to certain things. And one of the biggest I see this as a majorly prevalent problem right now for everybody, not just entrepreneurs. And the lie is this: if you can fit it in, you can have it all, right? If you can fit in 1,700 Facebook friends, you can be connected deeply with all of them. If you can do 27 different businesses at the same time, you can win at all of them. And succeeding comes down to focus and saying no. You have to learn to say no to certain relationships, to certain negative, influences in your life, certain decisions and behaviors. I mean, this stuff's it's not easy to do. I mean, you're not claiming that. I'm not claiming it, but it's actually not that complicated. We need to say yes to what's in front of us right now. And then I listen to a podcast called Entrepreneur on Fire, and the host always says, focus, follow one course until success. But especially with young people, AC, I think it's really hard for them. We are so busy. We're so all over the place. We think that the 2,000 friends we have on Facebook are friends. No, they're not. They're not. It's not real. So, I mean, do you agree with that?
Oh, no. Yeah. My wife says that all the time. She's like, gosh, you got 1,700 friends. How many of those people you really know? I said, I don't know. She said, you'll friend anybody that has either a fish in her pitcher or is in the power washing industry. I said, well, yeah, pretty much. But, I said, at least I'm not friending hot girls. She kind of laughed. She said, yeah. She said, I'd kill you if you were. But the bottom line is, you have to learn to say no, and you need to learn when to say yes. You have to know when to jump, Josh. Even as successful as I've been, and I'm merely a pimple on the butt of most real entrepreneurs across this country. Okay? I mean, you like to go, $4.8 million a year cleaning company. You really did something. No. If I shared with you that wild, hairy, audacious dream I have right now, Josh, it'd blow your mind because you wouldn't think it's possible at all. But I've already got the formula down. We've run all of the tests, and we've got something that we're getting ready to accomplish that's huge. It's going to blow everyone's mind. But I get scared and nervous, and I don't know if I want to jump. We're getting ready to go into a new facility and do a big remodel on it and everything else. And, one day I'm like, oh, I don't want to do it. We're just going to stay here. We need to wait, try to find something bigger. And next minute I'm like, no, if we don't get out of here, we got 8 people in this office and 1 toilet. We're going to have a war, I mean, you start to go, oh, man, I don't know if I necessarily want to do that. So you got to remember, the Bible says iron sharpens iron. Okay, you got to have that person in your life that's going to poke you, okay, and sometimes push you out of the nest or get you to that uncomfortable point and get you to grow and make those steps and say yes sometimes.
Yes, you can't grow without friction. I mean, the iron sharpens iron thing, that's friction. There's pain. There's always pain involved in risk when you try to grow in any area. And look, AC, I'm with you on the big, audacious, hairy dream thing. I mean, there's a handful of people on the planet that know what my big, ultimate, lifelong thing is for my heart. I don't share that with people. It's a very personal thing, but I am one of those crazy weirdos like you that has massively stupid big goals. They intimidate me. And when you're having a negative day in your own thought life, you're going to say, "What really? Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are, Josh?" Right? That's why it's important to have the right people around you. AC, this has been an incredible talk, and we could go on forever. I want to wrap it up here, but before we do, I just want to tell the listeners, AC today running Soft Wash Systems. It's a highly positive and encouraging group of entrepreneurs all over the country. Actually, Brandon Vaughn, I just interviewed him. I think he's a Soft Wash Systems guy too, and he took his dad's business from $100,000 to $1.3 million in like 4 years. I mean, which is amazing. So I don't know all the details of what you do. Can you give us an overview on what it is? I know it's business development and all that. What does that really mean to the average person listening to this? What can Soft Wash Systems provide people with?
Yeah, Brandon Vaughn is actually one of our board members of Soft Wash Systems. So we have an executive board. And that's one of the ways I hold myself accountable is, I own the company. I'm at the top. I really don't have an accountability mechanism. So I put one in place. And my executive board, we meet every other month, and they help guide me in some of the decisions for our network, for our 120 companies we have across the country. But what we do when people say, well, gee, AC, what do you mean you have 120 companies across the country? Well, we kind of jokingly say we're like Mary Kay for men. Okay, we are a network of companies across the country that co-brand with Soft Wash Systems, and Soft Wash Systems offers all of the great stuff you would want a franchise to offer you, but we're not a franchise. So we've got support, we got training classes, we got DVDs, we got our own full art department, video editing, logo design, website. We've got our own chemicals, our own equipment, our Good Stewards program, Soft Wash Academy, just anything that you need on the back end of your office. We have our Shield support program where you can forward your phones to us. We'll answer your phones for you, do your proposals for you, handle your whole back end of your company to where you're just having to go out there and sell it and produce it. We are that ultimate support vessel for the entrepreneur. And like I told you earlier, we're a business development company that just so happens to sell soft washing products. I mean, a good day for me, we were talking earlier about measuring your performance. Sometimes you can have a good day fishing without catching a single fish. If fishing was catching all the time, they would call it catching, not fishing. Okay.
I went to Alaska once and did some halibut deep sea fishing, and it was really expensive. And I asked the captain when we were going out, I said, "Do we get our money back if we don't catch anything?" And he looks at me all like with his lazy eye, and he says, "You paid for fishing, not catching."
That's right. That's right. So some of my best days for me and what we do at Soft Wash Systems is when I get that person that calls me that's distressed, that has bought the equipment of the month that they saw at the latest show, that they've got a flatbed or a trailer full of crap, okay? They're frustrated, they're not making any money, they're not breaking $150,000 a year, and they're like, AC, I don't know what to do. I need help. I don't know where to go. And I sit down and have a 45 minute to an hour conversation with that person and talk to them about, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to just grow a big business? Tell me about your life. Tell me about where you want to send your kids to school. Tell me about what you want your retirement to look like. Tell me about what kind of car you want to drive. Are you a Maserati guy, or are you just looking to get a real nice Yukon XL? Tell me what you want out of your life. Let us help you build the engine that's going to get you there.
You have to begin with the end in mind, right? I mean, you gotta stick the flag in the dirt somewhere so you know where to point your ship. And it's funny because in my boot camp, the very first thing that happens is I try to force people to establish what is your why. And by why, I mean, what's your destination? What are we trying to do here? Because there's not a wrong answer, but we absolutely must establish what it is before we can ever reverse engineer a path and build the architecture to make it happen. I think it's incredible. So there's a lot of cleaning businesses that listen to this, and I can say from firsthand experience that pressure cleaning, soft washing, soft washing and roof washing using low pressure is a wildly profitable way to grow your business. But you got to have the tools and the support and all that stuff. It's a whole giant thing. So I encourage everybody, visit softwashsystems.com. Check it out. AC, I appreciate your time, man. I hope I can get to know you better, off air as well, and continue the relationship.
You just have to let me go fishing down there with you in Costa Rica.
Absolutely. I went spearfishing once, but I haven't even went deep sea fishing, which is shameful because where we live is one of the greatest places on the planet to go. I think it's sailfish or marlin or something.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do that. God willing. That'd be awesome. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Josh. Take care.
Hey, thanks for hanging out, friends. And from all of us here at the Quick Talk Podcast team, we hope you loved today's show. We hope that you were inspired to become a doer and not just a listener. Apply what you've heard today in your own business and watch things change for the better. Lastly, remember that all the money in the world can't save your soul. Seek first the kingdom of God, my friends. We'll see you next time.
For more information about the Quick Talk Podcast or Joshua's other businesses, visit our website, quicktalkpodcast.com. Have a blessed day.